Thank you for all being here. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's roundtable on technology as a growth driver. This roundtable is brought to you by Renewed, the open network for specialized subscription, membership, and event professionals. My name is Sue Stevens, and I'm the Executive Director for Renewed Europe, and I'll be moderating today's event. If you have any questions for today's speakers, you can submit them throughout the presentation and at the end during the Q&A session by using the chat function. After the presentation, you'll have access to the recording and slides, and we'll send you an email with a link once that's available online. Please keep yourself on mute to minimize background noise. Do turn your videos on if you can. It makes a big difference to see some faces. And please put your name and company in your box so we know who's asking questions. So on to today's session. I'd like to introduce you to our host, Jennifer Shivers. Jennifer is the CEO at 67Bricks. 67Bricks is one of Renewed's partner members and is a technology consultant and full-service product development team. The session will take us through 2 real-world case studies of how technology has been used to drive growth, followed by an opportunity for Q&A. I'm going to hand over to Jennifer now for a bit more information on 67Bricks and let her introduce you to our guest speakers. So Jennifer, over to you.
Lovely, thank you. Hello everyone. So welcome. My name is Jennifer Shivas. As Sue's mentioned, I am the CEO of 67Bricks, and we are a technology consultancy who architect and build products and solutions that help information companies, owners of content and data, to survive and thrive in the data-driven world. We're here today with a fantastic panel to talk about technology, and specifically technology as a driver for growth. Now, traditionally in many companies, and I would say particularly those that were not born fully digital, technology has been considered more like a service to the business and therefore categorized purely as a cost. But in the evolving digital landscape, where your content is a data asset and our expectations as users and consumers are driven by things like Google and ChatGPT, thinking of technology in that way poses a risk. Technologies need no longer either an optional luxury or something that you want to drive down to bargain basement cost and service level. Making the right technology decisions, putting in place technology that you can control, is flexible, is scalable, all of that can drive growth, deliver new revenue, power new products, and ultimately increase the value of your business. So with that in mind, I'm really pleased to be joined by 2 excellent speakers. We have Emma Bodden from the British Editorial Society of Bone and Joint Surgery, who I must admit you're probably going to hear me shorten to Bone and Joint, and Andy Noble from the IWSR. Both will be sharing first-hand experience of delivering strategic technology change. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a bit more detail, but before we do that, I just want to highlight how different these 2 companies are. So we've deliberately selected Emma and Andy not only because they have such inspiring stories to tell, but also because those stories are quite different to one another. And one thing I hope their stories can help highlight is that this theme of using technology as a driver for strategic growth can have just as much of an impact on smaller companies as it does on those with very high revenues or larger investment behind them. So Sue's mentioned, if you have any questions at all along the way, please pop them over in the chat box and we'll pepper them in as we go along. But now I'm going to kill the slides so that we can more properly connect in conversation and hand over to our panelists. I'm going to start with Emma. Emma, please could you tell us a bit about yourself and your company?
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks for having me on today. So I'm the Director of Publishing at Bone and Joint, and we are a small UK charity, and we were formed in 1953 with the mission to educate orthopaedic surgeons. So right there, we're very specialist. We've been very traditional. We published 1 journal. We don't have a membership. We fulfill our charitable mission through publishing traditionally. We launched 3 other journals between 2012 and today. And so we approach this from very much a publishing perspective. And we found ourselves in a situation where we're very small and we had lots of legacy systems internally, and we've been through a process over the last couple of years where we've undergone quite significant digital transformation in our accounts department, etc. And that led us to a point where we looked at what we needed to do to bring everything together that we did in a technological solution. So do you want me to talk about what we did now, Jennifer? Or
yeah, if you can kind of describe the business goal that you set out to achieve.
So, like most publishers, our journals were hosted on an off-the-shelf platform. We had a subscription CRM system that was very old, and the way our systems talked to each other was frankly not fit for purpose. We had one feed going from our CRM into the website, but nothing coming back. So very disparate data, and it was very difficult to get the data we wanted out of our journal platform. And to do anything that had any kind of evidence behind it, we had to kind of put data together in another system to get something out. So it was very complicated and very clunky. We also found that being a very small company, anything that we wanted to do basically was never on the roadmap for the system we were on. Development times were really long, and often the cost was prohibitive. So we found ourselves just not doing anything. And that was very frustrating for us as a company. I think we're quite forward-looking, and so we ended up deciding that we were going to move our CRM to a new system, while simultaneously building a brand new journal platform from scratch, because we decided that we could probably do it better. And we wanted to make sure that our systems were fully integrated with a full feedback loop to allow us to have a full picture of what our customer data looked like, who'd registered, who'd purchased. Everything on our previous website was just difficult. It took 4 clicks to download a PDF. Creating an account caused many emails to our customer service team because people couldn't actually figure out how to do it. So there was a lot of elements on the site that we had that needed to be rectified. And just to put this in perspective, we have a full-time staff of 16. Did not have any technical expertise in-house, really. Although we do have the best team. I mean, everybody who works at the society is amazing and has upskilled massively. We did not have a technological team in-house.
Wow, 16 people. And before I ask Andy to introduce himself, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you went about approaching this challenge.
Well, we definitely didn't want to go from one off-the-shelf platform to another, particularly as we had this complicated integration with our new CRM system. So we had to find, obviously, a partner that was doing something different. And we went through a discovery phase with 67 Bricks with Will, and worked out what it was we wanted to deliver and broke it down into achievable chunks, and relied heavily on their technical expertise. But I think they also have a really good understanding of our business and what publishers are trying to achieve, which helped us approach the project in a way that allowed us to be planned, but also agile enough to pivot when we needed to. And we did lots of times, because doing the CRM build at the same time meant that different elements of the project got delayed because of various things that were going on.
Brilliant. And just for everyone's context here, do you have a system now? Is this
We have a wonderful system now, thank you.
There in the world.
It's great.
Brilliant. We will come back to you, but for now I'm going to ask Andy, please, if you could introduce yourself and your company, and also the challenge that you set out to solve.
Sure, thank you. Andy Noble, I'm Chief Data Officer at the IWSR, which stands for the International Wine and Spirit Record. Just something for the future, I'm also proxying for the Chief Product Officer role at the present, although I am trying to get them to recruit somebody to come in and do that full time. The IWSR is we think the global leader in total beverage alcohol research. We're the only company that measures sort of brand and category performance across beverage alcohol. across 160 markets. Our data sources, we spend a lot of time gathering data locally through sort of a wide network of researchers out in the field. So there's plenty of data coming through into our system in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways, which we then supplement with supplier and distributor data. So the idea is our business is to sell. We're not a charity, but like Emma, but is to sell that data back to distributors, suppliers, etc., and producers of alcohol, such as the big players all the way down to a small long tail of independent wineries in France, etc. So that's our business. We've expanded pretty rapidly. It's a long-standing business. It's been in existence for almost 50 years, or actually just over 50 years, I think. It's expanded rapidly over the last few years. So I was brought in to help deliver some transformational change across data and product. We've got sort of the goal we're trying to sort out is we have a well-established database, which if you bought a subscription and you logged onto it, very much looks like it was written in the 80s or 90s. It's very old. It's very old-fashioned. It works. It does a good job for our core data set. But we also have about 6 or 7 other verticals of alcohol-related research data that we want to distribute to our customers. The old school way of doing that was to send them out spreadsheets, PDFs, which wasn't particularly useful. Also prevented us from joining that data together to create insights across a wider bunch of things. We've been reasonably acquisitive. We acquired a consumer insight research business as well, and that data is very different to the traditional alcohol data. And again, we needed to join that together. So the problem we had was some architectural background change for data to create a model to bring all that data together, and then no platform to deliver all of those disparate data sets in a single, easy to access, easy to use way. We did also have some of the similar problems that Emma had in terms of the sort of customer management stuff, sign up, tracking what users are actually doing, etc., and potential leakage through the grey market for our stuff. So our goal was to centralize, have a platform that allowed us to deliver all of those various data sets, ease access to that data for our clients, but also to future-proof it. As we're growing quite rapidly, we're going to be bringing other data sets in, so it needed to be able to land those data sets in a fairly seamless way without relying on a huge team. A bit like Emma, we have the second best team in the world. But we don't really have a technology function. We've done outsourcing before, and probably we'll come on to a little bit later as to why we've done it this way versus another way. Of if I want to wash my dirty laundry in this particular forum, I will do, but we've a fairly disastrous previous incarnation of trying to do this particular piece of work.
Well, I look forward to hearing about that.
The teaser.
We have 2 very different businesses. We have charity and not-for-profit and for-profit organisation. You both described a sort of previous state of being where actually you had something that worked. So there's a solution to this off the shelf. In your case, Emma and Andy, you described a system where customers ultimately got what they needed, a bit convoluted. So I was wondering what the risk inherent with the status quo was.
Let's go first. I think for us the risk was stagnation. So I feel like we were beginning to fall behind because we were shying away from any kind of development. We were aware of all of the problems we were having on the site that our users were having, and we weren't able to address them in a sensible way. We also, which we'll come on to, have kind of shifted our focus a little bit in terms of what we're doing. I'd say we're moving away from being a traditional publisher to we've developed some digital products, and what we want to get to is a point where the platform is literally a springboard for other things, and you can't do that with an off-the-shelf product. What we need is a system that we can continually evolve and change and meet new needs, build other products off of, and and that's one of the drivers for doing it. So for us, the risk of staying where we were meant that we weren't able to move forward, and we have to embrace the technology that's out there in order to move forward. So yeah, we've totally shifted everything about how we view what we're doing, and in fact what we're doing, because it couldn't have been done if we were partnering with someone else's system. And they have a very determined roadmap that serves their bigger clients. So yeah, I absolutely fully believe we've done 100% the right thing. Might have been the maddest thing that we've ever done. A lot of people have been like, "You've done what?" But for us, we've already seen the benefits of that joined up thinking in-house.
Andy, anything to add on the risks of staying still?
Again, some similar things. Just from the commercial point of view, I think it's worth adding that a platform that's not able to flex with your clients' requirements is a commercial disaster. So our big challenge was plenty of things to sell to people, no way of delivering it to them in a modern and effective way, and no ability to be able to scale the business we're PE backed. So the ability to be able to scale that business is hugely important, and to do that at pace is equally important. So I think the pace is probably the biggest challenge, needing to be able to do it quickly and be ready for the future. So there's a huge commercial risk to us for not getting this right.
And I'm interested, so you've described, particularly Emma described a path less trodden. Was there anyone internally that you had to bring along with you? So for example, I don't know, a board or a well-established editorial team, that kind of thing. So did you have internal convincing to do to take that path?
So we did. So our staff, senior managers, were all on board with this as the solution. But we have a council of management who are orthopedic surgeons, so they're effectively our trustees, and they sign off on any investment, particularly of this level. So we had to very much work on our communication piece with them, and actually presented it in the most transparent and simplest format. And actually, one of the things that helped us was that they'd all experienced these problems themselves. So when we came in and said, actually, we think that we can solve these, but to do that, we have to build it ourselves, they were kind of halfway along the road anyway. And our editor-in-chief is part of that group, and he basically massively helped our case by saying, you know, as an orthopedic surgeon currently in practice, this is just not fit for purpose. But the whole way along, I mean, it's obviously a significant investment in our future that we've made. There were lots of challenges from them. They really pushed us on some of the decisions, and actually the way we did bring them with us was making sure they were testing and seeing it at every iteration and telling them as much information as we could in an easy to digest format, to help them with that understanding. And actually they've been fantastically supportive. I think we've been incredibly lucky with our board.
Brilliant. Andy, anyone from your side to convince?
Yeah, I mean, plenty of convincing on our side. I think the challenge was not so much spending money. The challenge was more about where we wanted to spend it and the way in which we wanted to spend it. And this goes back to a point you made at the beginning around technologies being seen as a bit of a back office function, and you just go, hire some developers and write some code, and that'll solve the problem. So the challenge we had was convincing a very sales-driven organization to actually take a step back and look at it more from a product point of view, and actually spend time planning properly, talking to customers, building a development roadmap that was aligned to customer requirement and internal product need, rather than just go and writing what the salespeople said they wanted to stick under the noses of customers. That's a pretty big challenge, actually, to slow down in order to speed up. That was, I think, the biggest barrier we had.
Yeah, that's made me curious about the kind of approach you took I suppose, day to day to deliver something quite big, and also how you feed customer feedback, knowledge of the customer into what you're doing on a day to day basis. Can you talk a bit about the approach you took, and also about customer feedback?
Yeah, sure. Shall I roll on from that one,
Yeah.
Emma? So I mean, I come from a history of trying to do things in a product-driven way in data businesses, and the approach that we took and that we persuaded people to take is to look at this as more as a product roadmap with technology as the delivery mechanism. So trying to find a partner who's going to understand the technology but actually work with us on a product basis. The approach is go out, talk to your customers, work out what their pain points are. They've spent quite a few years telling us what they are, but actually line up the most important parts of capability within that platform. So which capabilities are going to deliver the most benefit for in the quickest time, and then start build those key capabilities as the base, put the data into the system, and then really enter a phase of starting to talk to some customers in an alpha phase as, is this the sort of thing that you would use if we built it? Go away, build some of those tools on top of those capabilities, and then enter into a proper beta phase where we're developing pieces of functionality, testing it with customers, and doing that in a very iterative fashion, which is actually the phase we're just entering at the moment. We've done a big beta phase internally with our internal users who are quite critical, and are just about to go into an extended beta phase with our customer base. Just so the audience knows, that beta phase is running all the way up to our major product release or our data release in May 2024. So that's the period of beta and iterative development that we're looking to do.
And the audience might be interested then in when we started.
Oh, we've been going for, that's a good question. I've got to try and remember now. Probably about 9 or 10 months. I mean, certainly before engaging 67 Bricks, we did some thinking around product, but we wanted to bring in a partner early to work alongside us in that product discovery phase. Me personally, I've had quite a lot of bad experiences with handing over a set of requirements to a body shop to build a platform, which is the horror story that I alluded to earlier, which is go away and build this thing, which they then spent 2 years building, stuck it in front of customers, and the customers hated it. So that was 2 years worth of wasted effort. So that's the approach that we took there. So yeah, probably 6 months thinking, building, testing, etc., getting to the phase where we can actually start talking internally to people about what those capabilities are. Are we going in the right direction, and building some tooling on top of that? And I think, yeah, we entered beta sort of about a month and a bit ago internally.
Do you think those labelings are quite important, because they can be new, I think, to people? Alpha, beta, MVP, etc.
Yes, I think they are, because I think they very much define the milestones at which you enter your risk decision making. So in my experience, if you don't go through those various phases, you can spend a lot of money building things that nobody wants. So an alpha phase, MVP phase, that pretty much the same thing, which is what's the minimum set of capabilities you can pop under somebody's nose to have a little bit of a play with, to see whether it's something they want to use. So I can give you an example of what we did here. Is we chose a technology to do dashboards that would allow us to upload loads of data into a system and display dashboards relatively easily. We did a fairly thin demo of that to a few customers just to make sure that was a sensible approach. It wasn't pretty, didn't really work very well, but it gave them a general idea of what was going on. So that's the alpha phase. At that point, we understood that's the capability that we need, and then that's when the real development work started to get that put onto the system, put onto the platform, integrated properly, tested, etc., scalable, performant, all the things that people are probably more used to. And at that point, when it's ready to actually be tested in anger, then we'll go into the beta phase, and that's really kind of ironing out the last few bugs and just making sure that the fine tuning that needs to be done gets done before we launch. You don't want to be entering a beta phase for your customers to tell you, no, we're not interested in that really.
After all.
No.
Give us our PDFs.
Yes.
Emma, you spoke a little bit about their approach, but I wondered if you wanted to say anything more about their approach, and in particular the approach to folding in customer feedback.
So we went through to get a better understanding of other problems and issues that people had that we weren't aware of. We went through a whole process of contextual interviews, surveys, and a lot of discussion with our editorial boards. And then we had a very similar approach to Andy, where we went through a discovery phase, as I mentioned, and we got to the MVP, where we were handing it to selected people to test, and then went through a fairly extensive beta phase testing. But the timescales for us were fairly short. We started the project in January 2021, and we launched on the 7th of February 2022, which is extraordinary, considering everything that went on in the background and the integration that we had. So it all happened fairly rapidly.
Brilliant. So I want to talk about highs and lows, and I'm just wondering whether to start with highs or start with lows. I might start with lows, actually. So in terms of challenges along the way, where there must have been challenges. Can you talk to the challenges?
I think our biggest challenge was, keep harping on about the integration, but that was a difficult thing to achieve because we were dealing with a third party. The system itself wasn't ready and tested and built. So trying to get those work streams to align was complicated. And I think if you speak to members of your staff, Jennifer, they'll tell you how they feel about workbooks, and they might have their heads in their hands. However, we obviously managed it and actually ended up with a great technical solution for all of the issues that we came across. There were other issues that we had. Our page layout design was quite ambitious to start with, and I think that was probably the lowest point of the project, when we were told that actually it probably wasn't achievable for our first iteration of the platform. But we worked together with the team at 67 Bricks to work out what were our non-negotiables, what did we really want to achieve out of it, and what was the minimum that we could achieve, no, maximum even, that we could achieve with the time that we had. And actually we did end up with a really great page design. It's much better than we had before. I'm sure everyone on the call is going to be delighted to understand that customers now only have to click once and they can receive a PDF, no more 4 clicks. So yeah, those were our 2 biggest challenges, I think. But that integration was complicated, and actually I think there was a lot learned on all sides during that process.
Lovely. Andy, challenges?
A couple of bigger challenges were not really to do with the development side of things, actually, were to do with because we're integrating third-party software. So one of the big challenges we had is when we entered our internal beta phase, we used our account managers and salespeople as the beta testers, because they're the ones who then have to go on and train and talk to customers about how to use the platform. The old platform and data mechanism that people are used to is although it's not flexible and it's not fit for purpose for the future, is actually quite easy to use, or it has been if you've been using it for the last 20 years. So that was quite a barrier. And some of the things that people were expecting to be able to do in the new platform couldn't be done. So that was a bit of a challenge. So we had to not change the way we did things, but kind of go back to building a few more dashboards in different ways and approaching the beta phase in a slightly different way. It's not really a problem. It slowed us down a little bit getting the beta out to customers, which is why it's, I would say, probably a couple of weeks later than I was expecting. So that was one challenge. It wasn't insurmountable, but came as a little bit of a surprise to us. The other one was performance. We had some performance issues again with the integrated software, where we had to change the underlying database platform to deliver to the front end. So we did that. The advantage of the way we built it through the capability model was that we could switch that out without really affecting anything else. There were no dependencies on that. So that sort of proved out the modular nature of the build, really. So those are probably really the only two significant challenges, I would say. And I think that's the result of the reason we didn't bump into some of the challenges I have had in the past when you're outsourcing development work is down to the fact that we approached it in this much more coherent way from a product point of view across us and yourselves as partners. So it was product first, that, you know, making sure that everybody in that process understood what the objective was from a customer point of view and not just a build of a piece of technology.
Yeah, feels like there's some differences but overlaps in terms of challenges around third-party integrations, working with third parties who are perhaps not used to people blazing a trail like that and are used to integrating with very set pieces of software, and maybe something there around kind of the scope of ambition or having to compromise either for budgetary reasons or for restrictions in the new architecture or what have you. So yeah,
I think the compromises come down to the reason that Emma embarked on her approach in the first place, which is you buy an off-the-shelf piece of software, you kind of run to their roadmap. And it's important that when you're integrating software, you understand what the limitations are for that, not only for the build that you're doing at the moment, but for your future-proof future state. So that when you do inevitably come across a problem with a third-party integrated roadmap, you have a way of being able to deal with that, rather than having to, chuck that piece of technology away and start again.
Emma, anything to add? Okay, well, we focused on challenges and highlights. What went well? What was surprising? Either, please jump in.
Sorry,
you go first, Andy.
I mean, the thing that was, for me, I wouldn't say surprising, but pleasing, and a highlight, was the nature of the partnership. It's very much been not felt like a distant third party. It's been pretty symbiotic in terms of the way that things work. So we have regular catch-ups, Slack channels opened up to ease communication, and it's very much felt like working with an in-house development team. So that's been a particular highlight. I think the fact that we managed to find a partner who actually understood the importance of product and has that as a core skill set would make me choose 67bricks or let's not be biased, but and a partner who has a strong product background as well is actually a very important part of a modern way of developing a technology solution. So that was really very pleasing, and I can speak for everybody in our business who's who's aligned to it, is that approach has actually proved to be by far the best way of doing things.
Why do you think that is?
Because you are working out what problem you're trying to solve and why you're trying to solve it before you start writing code. And the worst thing is to have to go back and write a whole bunch of different code because you haven't solved the business problem. So taking time up front to understand what it is you're doing saves us so much time in the long run. And if you've got a partner who understands that, they are prepared to take the time to have the meetings, to listen to it, to work through the problems almost as a thought experiment. Whereas some other partners I've worked with actually are, you can see the developers sitting on the calls bored out of their skulls because actually all they want to do is go away and tap the keyboards and write some code. And this is it's a much better way of doing it. You constrain the problems, you solve the problem that you need to solve, you build capabilities, and you develop from there.
Lovely, great answer. Emma, what went well?
I mean, I would echo Andy's comments about the team and the partner that we selected. I think for us, we had in the past, we've switched from one off-the-shelf product to another, and we've had quite a few issues at launch, which were unforeseen and surprising in their nature. And I think we were approaching the launch date here with real trepidation. You know, we literally, this is our whole business going live, and there was a real concern that, you know, someone somewhere had forgotten something, and maybe that was, you know, I think I was really scared I'd forgotten something. And actually launch day came and went, and it just worked. You know, this amazing project that we just spent, you know, a year on, it just worked. There were no moments of sheer panic when you realize something awful has happened. It just worked, and that for us was such a major achievement. And the integration with the CRM system, customers could now purchase on our website. We didn't have to do anything manually in-house. Their subscription was set up, they had access. Done. No manual intervention on our side needed, which is massive considering our size. Any efficiencies we can bring into the process are, you know, essential. And actually that's borne out now, because there's lots of things that were very manual that we've really streamlined, and some of that's in the back end. They're not things that you're going to see as a user. They're things that are helping us as staff, because we're downstreaming some of the things that we were manually doing previously, that mean that we've now got more downloads on PMC, or, you know, things like that. There's just little things in the background that have actually made our lives a lot easier, that we were able to solve through this whole process. We did a rebrand as well at the same time. I mean, why not just do everything at once, which we did. And so this new site going live, looking different, really fresh, the whole thing was just, yeah, seamless, which, I mean, testament to my team, your team, for getting it over the line and getting it done. It was quite something.
So you've both described, I guess, battle scars, or the voice of experience, as a way of putting it. So you've both described launch dates or previous kind of attempts that have maybe gone poorly, and I've certainly experienced that, being on the flip side, and engaging suppliers or what have you, and them letting you down. And you know, this is all about technology as a key strategic asset for your business. Or what would you say to people who are on the call, who've perhaps had those terrible experiences before, terrible launch dates, and are perhaps feeling inertia now as a result? What would your advice be?
I think my advice would be, and the same as I gave to this business when I joined it, which is make sure you take enough time to understand what problem it is you're trying to solve, and talk to your customers about it. Businesses are generally pretty poor at actually talking to customers about what the problem is. They'll quite often talk to them in a fairly loose way and a sales way. And so you get, at that point, you get a sort of an idea of what the customer thinks they want, but actually not what they need. So taking the time to really understand what the customer's needs are, how they're going to use whatever it is you're going to build, and that's the product process. So I think it's engaging in your business somebody to be accountable and responsible for owning the product from a customer point of view, and not until you really understand what your customer wants to go off and start building anything. And one of the advantages that we did have with this, and we've one of the things that's been mentioned before is about trust. How do you build trust with a partner? And it is a leap of faith. But when you engage a partner who's prepared to go on that discovery journey with you, with your clients, if they understand the product process, it will be very apparent fairly early on that relationship's going to work. So that for me is a way of building trust. And so understand your customer, get your partner on board with the product journey, and commit capabilities to a backlog, a workable backlog, before you start cutting any code. That would be my advice.
Emma, any advice to those that have had your nightmare launch day?
I think that we were on a system, as you mentioned, it worked, we were fine. It was easy to do nothing. But if you do have challenges, what is the solution to just staying still? I don't think you can stay still in today's world. In publishing, we spend our lives using systems that are built on 90s code, that have had various different pieces bolted onto them, but fundamentally actually are beginning to really not do the job they need to do in 2023. So I think that actually you need to look at, as Andy says, the problems you need to solve, but actually really look at the technology you're using to deliver whatever it is that you deliver to your customers, and not be afraid to change, because we're tiny, and I feel like we're David and Goliath sometimes, because we really do kind of think that we can do anything, because we've got that mindset of, okay, well, what do we need to do? Okay, this is the problem, how do we solve it? And for us, it was a massive project to solve the problem, because there were so many problems. We had to take technology and make it work for us. And hopefully, by taking such a big step forward technology wise, we've now set ourselves up to be able to react in the future. Because I wouldn't have wanted us to be in 5 years' time still on the same platform, basically even far further behind the curve than we would have been now. So yeah, I think it's pulling out the fear and just making sure you plan your project properly, but with enough freedom to be able to pivot should you need to be able to.
I'm really interested in the word trust as well that Andy used, because it's quite an emotive word, but it's also quite a sort of intangible thing. Like, how do you build that trust? How do you know you can trust someone?
That's a tricky one. It is, and I think it's from my point of view, it's born out of experience. So I've been doing this for a while, and learnt where the sticking points are in builds. So when you get a partner who responds appropriately, honestly, to those sorts of challenges, things like some classic examples: performance, scalability. If people, entitlements, authentication, all these things that are non-functional requirements, but are actually incredibly difficult to do and to get right. When you speak to a partner who understands the importance and has some battle scars of how to do it, but is flexible enough to listen to other people, those sorts of things start building the trust. The other thing is working with a partner, and this is also for people on the call. The things that people should do is make sure you spend enough time working out how much money you need to spend for the future build, not just to solve the problem that's under your nose, because that's where technology cost runs away with itself. So there is a longer term commitment than the initial problem solve. And if you solve the initial problem cheaply, you'll just sort of store up problems for the future. So having a partner who's prepared to be honest with you about how long something's going to take to build, and not do the traditional sort of, don't worry, HS2 is only going to cost $1 billion, £1 billion, rather than actually how much it is going to cost. That builds trust as well. And particularly if you've got somebody in your business who's experienced in development projects and knows when the development team is swinging the lead, just telling you, because all developers underestimate, right? But if you find one who doesn't, is prepared to be honest about cost, then that's useful too.
Brilliant. Ella, any follow-on comments?
I think it's just about personal relationships as well, isn't it? You have to deliver on what it is you said you would deliver, and that's certainly our experience.
So I think we have an audience question from Todd. I can either read it out, or if you'd like to.
Yes.
Todd,
yeah, if I could explain a bit. So I'm with Opus. I'm product management director at Opus, and I'm working at several information companies in a variety of contexts. I always think about, how do you make the argument to the higher ups about, making the kinds of changes that you all have done. And I can see, to me, in my experience, some arguments work and some don't, even though they should. So I think I kind of see it, Andy, in your case, it's a little bit easier. I can see, oh, you need to join together data. Oh, that will let us, for instance, create new products that will let us sell more. Okay, that's a little bit easier. So therefore, we need to invest. That's a little easier. Or, but I guess a little harder. Oh, and also scaling. That's particular investors to say, well, we're going to acquire some new businesses, or we're going to launch some new products, but we can't do it unless, with our current system. That seems to be a little easier. A little bit harder, though, Emma, it seems like some of what you're saying, like, well, yeah, we need a custom, 4 clicks versus 1 click. Yeah, of course, everyone knows that, 4 clicks is bad and no one wants that. But when you really say, well, and here's how much it's going to cost you, that's harder to make. And things like internal, well, this is a manual process and that's really inefficient. Well, yeah, inefficiency is bad. We know that. But when you say, and here's how much we need to invest, it becomes a lot harder to justify that. So just, could you speak, what do you think really kind of won the argument for you in terms of getting the resources?
I think it's a step back from this particular focus. So as I mentioned, we've been a very traditional publisher, and in our world there are lots of threats from various sources to our main source of income, and we have decided to have a strategy of diversification to build out some digital products. So in the context of being able to move our entire business forward, we were able to demonstrate that by moving platforms, we would be able to have a base to pivot some new digital products from, which is exactly where we are now. We haven't stopped doing the development work when we've moved on to a new product, but it's absolutely utilizing the technology we've already put in place. So all of those payment pathways, those pathways back to our CRM system, and then the authentication that we've already put on the site, we're reusing all of that stuff in our new product. So when we were communicating with our board, it was very much a case of, look, this is the massive picture that we have. This is our strategy. This is the vision. This is where we want to get to in the next 5 years. But unfortunately, to do that, we actually have to do something really major now to position us for the future. That CRM integration, they could really see the massive disconnect that we had by only having an information stream going one way. And we spent a lot of time working out how to communicate with them in a way that was making sure they didn't have any gaps in their knowledge, that everything we knew they knew, but that we had simplified it in a way that they could easily digest. I mean, these are busy orthopedic surgeons that we're having to pitch to, and I've done it several times now to get various levels of investment. And actually the most effective way we've had is just bringing them on the journey, like really showing them how big the problems are. Because yes, 4 clicks is one example of how annoying the previous site was, but one information direction to the website, that is massive for us, because we just had so much behind a closed door with our old system that we couldn't really have any intelligent data on our customers. So that impacted on our marketing, our retention of subscriptions. And so all of that was presented to our board in a way that they could understand, and they were up for the challenge. I think they've all realized that we cannot stay where we are, but that we can't deliver any change unless we put technology at the center of everything that we're doing. And so it was literally telling them the story and bringing them with us.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Andy, anything to add?
That was a beautiful answer, actually.
Yeah.
That was I'm going to steal that one. That's great. That's exactly as it should be. I think the comment there is your business leaders should have a goal, should have a strategic goal, and lining up your requirements for your technology solution or whatever solution it might be to that vision should sell itself, really. I think the challenge for some businesses is that technology is seen in isolation from product, and you end up trying to have to justify technology spend when nobody wants to spend money on technology. Whereas actually the real sell is what is the product going to generate for the business, and how is it going to take that business along its strategic objectives. And generally speaking, there's shareholders behind that, and if those strategic objectives are agreed by the shareholders, it makes it an easier sell than trying to sell them a widget or a piece of technology or a database which is too far removed from where they're looking.
Thanks. I'm conscious of time, but we have had one other audience question, which is to ask a little bit more about, you both mentioned being able to sell content in new ways. So whether you can say a bit more about building a product that allows you to sell more flexibly. So technology as a vehicle for new sales models, new business models, etc.
From my side, the way that we do that is listen to the problems that customers are talking to the salespeople and the account managers about what they need to solve. So the way to enable more sales through that platform is to answer more questions that customers want to answer. So whether it's analytics or insight or reporting or dashboards, is solving those problems enables the salesman to pitch that to the customer, and that's really the driver for us.
For us, we were in a situation where we want to retain subscriptions, right? So someone's got a subscription, they've got to renew it. They were having to send us a piece of paper back or fax us to renew their subscription. So they could purchase a subscription sort of on the site in an incredibly clunky way. I mean, if I'd had to purchase a subscription to our journal through our website in its previous iteration, I'd have thrown my computer out the window. It was just stupid. So we've made it much easier for a customer to purchase whatever it is they want to purchase on our site, to renew. They can see when their subscription's expiring. they're going to get an automated email now. So everything we've done, we've tried to put the word simple in the middle of it, because that's our new keyword at Bone and Joint, is simple, because actually a user just wants the most streamlined, least intrusive process to do whatever it is they're doing, and they're more likely to purchase if you haven't really hacked them off in the process. So for us, it was just about simplifying many pathways for our users.
Brilliant. I'm almost at drawing this to a close stage, but I suppose a final question, and then we might have time for final words from each of you. But I suppose a final question is, and I know you're both at different stages in your kind of journey, but this is all about technology, you know, in regards delivering ROI. So, I mean, do you think that your board has seen ROI from this spend, or will they? Emma?
Yes, I think they have. In terms of all of the problems that we were trying to solve, we have done so. We've seen increased usage, we've seen increased signups to alerts, various other metrics, and we've already seen quite a lot of efficiencies in-house, and with a staff of 16 and new digital products, actually that's really important for us to pull back some time. So in terms of return on investment, bearing in mind we're only 9 months from launch, I think we are hitting metrics that we hoped we would.
Andy, you're earlier in your journey, I guess, but any...
Yeah, I was going to say, if you invite me back in May 24, and I'll tell you whether that's landed. But the one thing I would say is that because we've engaged the business along the way as well, there is definitely a buy-in from them that we're going off in the right directions. So although we can't see, you know, the actual money from the investment so far, there is a high degree of confidence that what we're building is delivering to the future requirements of the business and the future requirements of the customers.
Brilliant. And with 2 minutes to go, I'm just going to ask if there's any kind of parting advice or words you have for the audience, things that you wish that you had said that you haven't yet said. Speak now.
I'm just going to repeat and bang the drum for listen to your customers and treat your technology delivery as a product problem rather than a technology problem. That's my mantra for the day.
Excellent.
And I would just say, go for it. Have a big vision. Do it.
Go for it. I love it. Okay, that's a great sentence to end on, I think. So from my perspective, I just want to extend huge thank yous to both Andy and Emma for taking part. Huge thank you for Renewed for having us. And thank you to everyone who dialed in. If you do have any questions that either we didn't get to or you haven't yet asked or pop into your head after this webinar, then very happy to field those questions. Feel free to email me. But otherwise, Sue, shall I hand back to you?
I think we're done. Just thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Andy. And Emma, Andy. It's been really interesting, actually. I think it's been great having you on. And a reminder that this was recorded, so we'll send you the link if you wanted to share it with colleagues in a couple of days.
Lovely. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you for the
Great.
invitation.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.